Yo, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to Hang 10. Welcome back to the show. We are joined once again by meteorologist Steve
This is the
Fundero.
one show that's appropriate. We could just do shakas the whole time.
The whole time throwing shakas for 24 to 25 minutes straight. We're back again, Steve, to talk this time about the difference between point breaks and beach breaks. Also, kind of just stoke out on some of the world famous breaks that we all know and love and hope to maybe visit one day.
Yeah, and maybe tell a little story time of any surf sessions that you and I have had on a beach break or a point break. You and I both kind of experienced both.
And that's one thing that not all surfers can say, for sure. Especially those who maybe don't have access to travel a lot. Luckily, at least for you spent some time on the West Coast. You're early in your career. I went to El Salvador after graduating college, as like me and my friends. Yeah. This was like the trip that finally made it out of the group chat. We went to El Salvador and scored a epic point break.
The trip that made it out of the group chat.
Finally made it out.
Finally made one. And you know, all based on geography.
Oh yeah.
You know,
this whole thing.
We said this last week in the episode that, you know, a lot of time spent in the weather center is us just Google mapping, looking at the coastline and the shape of the coastline, because the shape of the coastline influences the type of wave just tremendously.
Oh yeah, and you know, and also the swell direction too. You need the right swell direction. If you can have everything going with you for the geography side of things, but if the swell doesn't come in the right way, or maybe the period isn't right, or the size obviously just isn't there, maybe it's a sheltered coastline, you're not going to get these world-class waves that some areas of the world really can tap into and produce some of the top talent in the world when it comes to surfing on the world tour, free surfers, you name it.
But let's not forget Kelly Slater's from Florida.
Kelly Slater, the GOAT. The GOAT. It's not even a question. He's from Florida.
From the East Coast.
Beach break. So again, we're doing point breaks versus beach breaks.
All right. So beach break, pretty simple to understand, but let's go point break first.
Let's do point break first. Now, a point break, now we kind of throw around some terminology. We'll simplify it as much as we can, but a wave that breaks along the side of kind of a point of land. We call that kind of a headland, and it sticks out in the ocean. So it catches that swell coming in a little bit better than maybe coves. Yeah. Areas that are maybe, think of it as like a catcher's mitt. And if you're on the inside of the catcher's mitt, we're using my hand, for example, you're not going to get as much swell because the swell wants to go to those points that stick out far. Yeah. You can kind of think of it as like a magnet.
Sure.
Kind of.
Yeah, or a magnet, or it's a part of the land that reaches the swell when the swell is still powerful.
It reaches out and catches it before any other part of the land, which is why you mentioned the wave is more powerful. The wave is longer running because it's able to break down that bit of land, and it creates this long, dreamy peeler that you would draw in your high school notebook.
In your notebook. It's kind of like the first point of access where a wave starts.
Yes.
And you know, the shape of the coastline, that point in which the wave breaks is changing. It's moving. Whereas a shore break is just the beach. Yep. It's just the line of the beach. Whereas a point break, you have a fluctuation or a bend to the coastline. Yep. So when the wave comes in, it hits a point first.
They call that the headland.
And then just the wave continues along kind of those several points instead of hitting the entire beach
all at once. Yeah. And so here's a great example. Jeffreys Bay, J Bay.
This is Australia? Where's this?
This is this is in Africa.
In Africa.
This is I didn't know that. Wait, Jeffreys Bay,
silly
South
question.
Africa.
Is this Endless Summer where they found the perfect wave?
No, this is not Endless Summer.
This is not. Okay.
I believe they did
story
surf,
for a different time.
I believe they did surf J Bay. I can't remember exactly, but I believe the actual secret wave was something completely different. Okay. I don't know what that one is.
But that kind of looks like the secret wave.
Very similar look. But again, here's a perfect example. This is probably like when a surfer thinks of point break, J Bay is like one of the first to come to mind. It's one of the most famous point breaks on the planet. Now, these waves are very predictable. Because they start in one spot and they break all the way down the coast. There's going to be underwater features a lot of times that can kind of dictate the wave. So when you get through each section's going to break kind
a little
of
differently,
the same.
Or
you're going to be able to notice, okay, I'm at this point of the wave, maybe a barrel section is coming my way. You can predict that pretty well, whereas on a beach break it's there's a lot of
sandy bottom.
Sandy bottom
bars, it's all changing.
The sand shifts constantly. Now point breaks can have a wide variety. They can have the sandy bottom, they can have reef, they can have rock underneath. So that's kind of the big difference. Reef and rock, that's when you're going to get more of your permanent breaking type of waves where each section coming your way.
The predictability.
Yes,
The
it's high.
predictability. And on the right side of this picture, you see the waves breaking. And then if you follow the wave to the left side of the horizon, the left side of the picture there, the wave's not breaking. The way the coastline is bending out, you have the point farther out on the top right side of your screen. That's the initial point the wave starts to break.
Yeah.
And as it's moving into the coastline, it continues to break along kind of that bend. And it creates, it creates a perfect rideable wave because it extends the duration of the wave, so to speak.
Yeah,
If you extends the rideability of it, because that shoulder, that pocket you want to be in remains open. Open. Exactly. It remains open. And this is another
awesome
example
wave.
of it. Yeah.
Awesome wave here. Snapper Rocks in Australia. This is also one of the more well-known waves. Also one of the most accessible for all types of skill because it's, you notice, sandy bottom for the most part. There is some rocks there near the shore, which those rocks kind of going down actually helps to catch some sand to keep the sandbar full.
And keep it shaped as a point break.
Keep it shaped as a point break. So you can see the white water there kind of just indicating where the wave is breaking.
And then where it's not breaking.
And where it's not breaking.
Yeah.
Exactly. It's following. It's that point is catching the wave and that wave is following it all the way down. Some point breaks can go on. This is probably the biggest difference between a point break and a beach break. The length of a ride.
It's incredible.
Incredible. Point breaks, you can get rides over a minute.
Easily.
If you link them all the sections
and
together.
If the swell's large enough, the swell direct, if all the things line up and you have that, of course, and this is a really good example of it as well, because think of a wave coming in, it's a ripple, right? So it's coming in a line like this.
Yeah.
In this picture here, you see on the left side, the coastline is kind of shaped. It bends out. It bends out to a point. So as the wave comes in, my left side is going to start to hit that point, and this is going to be the part of the wave that starts breaking. But this part over here is not breaking.
Not breaking yet.
So it continues breaking, not breaking until it kind of meets all the way down. So you have a section of the wave that just follows that coastline. So it really is just dependent on the shape of the coastline,
of course,
and then the direction that the wave comes in. And like you said, the duration of waves or the length of your ride is just, it could be extended tenfold in a point break versus a shore break. Some of the longest rides I've had have been in the Santa Cruz area where you get it on a point, and if the swell is big enough, it wraps around. And sometimes there are point breaks set up where there are multiple points kind of along it. There might be a main point, and then there might be a second or third one down the line, but those second or third ones may only flare up when the swell's big enough.
Big enough, yeah.
If it's an okay swell, it's like, all right, well, the main point is where all the waves
is
are.
Always going to work.
But if it's a big enough swell, it may reach to the second point and then keep the wave going. And if it's even bigger, it may reach the third point and keep it going. Perfect example, Steamer Lane.
Yeah.
A lot of times, if some guy's got the big enough boards, they'll catch the waves at the point of Steamer Lane where the lighthouse is, and they'll be able to ride it all the way around the coastline and take it all the way in to where the pier is, to where the sand is, to where Cowell's Beach is. That's a separate surf break in itself. That's usually where like the beginners will line up. But if the swell is big enough, you can catch it from the advanced point break and get it all and that would be over a 2-minute ride, which would just be insane to think about. This was Ventura.
This is Ventura Point. So again, this is California. Steve's mentioning Steamer Lane in California, another one of those really well-known point breaks. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to kind of switch gears, talk about point breaks, but also we're going to talk about kind of the science behind the swells that you need for point breaks versus beach breaks, because
there's a difference.
Wave period is big with this. So stand by. We will be right back. All right, everybody, we are back talking about point breaks versus beach breaks. Steve, it's good to have you. You have a lot of experience with the California breaks. We just kind of touched on a couple, Steamer Lane being one of them.
Yeah, and beach breaks, you and I think, learned on. We learned on beach breaks.
Oh, totally.
Because the East Coast, all of the East Coast is beach breaks.
Yeah.
99% of the East Coast, maybe New England. New England's got our point breaks. Point Judith, Rhode Island. Yep, Narragansett.
That one's so good.
Matunic is a great spot in Rhode Island if you've ever been there. I'm not trying to blow up the spot, but these are all spots that are readily available. Massachusetts, Maine, their point
Yeah.
breaks up there because they have rocky coastlines that kind of mirror what you see on the West Coast a little bit.
I think the word too would be irregular.
Irregular.
Coastlines. They're not just a straight flat beach. Barrier islands, like the Outer Banks is a great example of barrier islands. The coastline's very straight for the most part. Your sandbars are going to line up in a straight line, and that's where you're going to get your beach breaks. Actually, believe it or not, the Eastern Shore, while it's not very accessible, it has kind of that marshy coastline. So you have these islands that pop up all over the place.
Kind of point breaking.
Shout out to Ben Gravy here. His recent video,
Found a
he
little point break.
scored a little point break.
Sure.
And now these point breaks on the Eastern Shore are a little bit hard to come by because it's all dependent on sand. It's our
And that's all moving.
Our sand
And that's
moves
all
constantly.
moving. Yeah.
And it might not be the same wave a day later. However, there are some breaks that can set up where I came from. Yeah, irregularity.
Irregularity. That's it. Yeah.
Tybee Island in Georgia has a point break. It only gets good during hurricane swells. It can only get good when the waves are when it's above a certain amount of feet and the period's long enough that it can wrap into the coastline.
Because that's a little inlet that's shaped that kind of it comes to like a little bit of a point. So with the way it comes in, there was a Matanzas Inlet in Florida, which is south of St. Augustine. Little bit of an inlet, but it's just enough of an irregularity of the coastline that the way the sand piles up in that little inlet, it almost spews out and creates this little point. And you can get so that, like you mentioned, that irregularity is a huge thing that you look for a point break. And now a beach break where it's flat.
Yeah.
This is tough.
Here's New Jersey.
There you go.
Thanks to my buddy Kate Watt. She's a great photographer in New Jersey.
it's
Takes
just
awesome
flat.
drone shots. But
This also just looks like you took a snap from Sandbridge or something.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? Or Virginia Beach just looks exactly like that. Just a straight shot of the beach.
Yeah. And then just sandbars kind of scattered here and there. There is a way to kind of replicate a point break on a beach break. You can do that through jetties, groins.
Sure.
Think about inlets. Think about the First Street Jetty, especially this past spring, this past May, early June, when we did have some swells coming in at just the right angle for us being east swell, because we want all that swell to come in right perpendicular to the coastline. If it's too south, it's going to miss us and go off to the north. It's going to hit the Eastern Shore a little bit better. But here in Virginia Beach, we've had those east swells this past spring. And with the dredging earlier, it piled up all that sand right near the inlet and created a pretty sick. I want to show you this. I've been waiting to show you this. Let me pop it up here. Look at this. This is inside the inlet, inside of Rudy Inlet. The sand just piled up in a way that inside the inlet you had a little mini point break.
And look at see how the waves are breaking on one side versus the other, kind of closer to the rocks on the right side. So
Where
you have
the
a nice
sand
little you have a nice little left coming in where the sand has kind of piled up. Look at that dreamer. Oh, that's fantastic.
You also have to
and
look
what you
at,
mentioned, the sand piled up and the piled up to a certain point. A certain specific location, which the waves, when they came in, they broke on, and that is where you get.
You
that
have to think
break.
of bathymetry.
Yes,
because waves are not going to break.
It's also a really fun word to say.
It's also a really fun word.
Bathymetry.
You have to think of waves can't break in deep water. They need a shallow sandbar to slow the bottom of the wave down so that the top of it continues to travel at the same speed. You get the lip that forms and it crests, and gravity does the rest. It breaks the wave. You need that to happen. You need these shallow sandbars. If you have shallow sandbar right next to deep water, you're going to get a peeling wave, a little tiny point break. That's the example.
So if in Virginia Beach, visualize this with our hands. So if you have, let's say, okay, so we know that the point break comes from a part of land that is bent out here. Here's the point. Waves are coming in this way. Kind of aerial view here. Waves are coming in this way, and they're going to break on where my fingers are here. They're going to break on this side, and then you're going to ride the wave this way. You're going to woo and ride it this way, right? Now, the bottom of the point break from the edge here is also shaped like that. Is also kind of shaped like this. It's shallower near the coastline and deeper. So when the waves come in, when they come in this way, they're going to break on this side where it's shallow, and then where it's deeper over here, they're going to stay up, which is what Brian was just mentioning.
That's exactly what you're seeing here.
Exactly. So where it's closer to the rocks, it's shallower, and the waves are coming in, they're breaking here, and then where it gets deeper, the waves are staying up, and they're unbroken.
Now that's exactly why it's different between a beach break, because beach breaks, it's all dependent on sand. It's high
and the direction of the swell too.
The direction of the swell, the period of the swell. If it's too long of a period, you get waves that are really, really long. Side to side, you can tend to get closeouts if the sandbar is not right. A wave that just breaks all at once, there's no shoulder to ride on.
Powerful.
a lot of times that comes from hurricane swells. If the hurricane is too far out to sea,
and
maybe
and a big swell,
and a really big swell, we kind of tend to get that where if there's no headland or top of the point to catch the wave first, it's all just going to break
all
in one
once.
spot all at once, and your length of ride is not going to be nearly as
and
long.
it's tough, and it's you may have to find a small section or just you get quick turn in and that's it.
Yeah.
And the difference between now in a point break, the longer the period swell, meaning the longer that line of a wave comes in,
the more it could
go.
Down
and then
the
it,
point.
and then it may make it to point 2, point 3, and it'll wrap around the coastline, and it'll keep going, and it'll create a longer ride here. And that's the one difference is, on these beach breaks, you need to find that one.
Here's Assateague.
Look at
beach.
that.
Not a point break, but beach break.
Peaky.
Very
and peaky enough. So we're talking about the size of a swell, why it matters in a point break versus a beach break. Here in a beach break, you want it, like Brian was mentioning, mid to long period swell.
Yeah.
Because it will create peaks and zones like this. Look at that. Look at that left right there.
Yeah.
In the middle of your screen. Perfect little left.
Was like
now, if the swell was a little bit longer or stronger, that would be
closeouts. Usually on the East Coast, that's anything above 14 seconds. Here's some clips from New Jersey. This is around an 8 to 10 second
swell.
Interval swell. Very peaky. But again, you still only get
a couple
one
turns.
turn, two
There's
turns in. Here's one. Here's another one coming. I eat it on this, but you get the point. The wave is over at that point.
At 1-2 points.
Here's in Tybee Island.
Right?
No, this is Tybee Island, Georgia.
Oh wow!
You can link a couple turns together like I did on this one, but again, it's a much shorter wave. That wave was 10 seconds long.
Whereas if you get a 12+ second swell on a point break, probably even more than that, if being honest, 15, 16, 17, 18 second swell. This is a perfect example. Brian's going to show you.
Here's some long period swell.
Notice on the left side of the screen, there's the beach. That's where it's shallow, those rocks. And now to the right side of your screen, it's deeper. And the wave keeps going.
This was one of my longest waves ever.
Incredible.
This was like a 10-turn wave.
Yeah, of course.
My legs were burning on the end of this.
But look, you're pumping, you're still going. It's a long period swell. Oh my gosh, it's still opening up in the zone.
Yeah,
what and a beautiful break.
You can kind of see here. This is Las Flores in El Salvador. Now we're going to reach
where it's the beach, where you get it to the inside, and then
see it shuts down.
And it shuts down. It's over. But that was way longer. Than your beach break, where it's just 1 or 2.
And I had to go, oh my god, because that was one of the longest waves I've ever surfed. So again, big differences between kind of the two breaks. I would say my most fun memories sometimes come from beach breaks, even though they're not the longest wave. They're still just as punchy, still just as fun. I obviously grew up surfing them, so there's a little sweet spot for beach breaks. I don't feel as nervous falling. On a beach break,
because the ground's of water.
Yeah, you don't
reefs and stuff like that.
You never know what's underneath, especially in certain breaks where maybe it's a little bit the water's color is not very clear.
Yep.
Like sometimes in Virginia Beach, it can
really
be
see what's going on.
A little murky there, but especially in like some of these point breaks where maybe the sand on the beach is a little silty, so when it comes out into the water, it makes it like a darker color. You can't really see what's underneath. That was the case in El Salvador. I've never surfed California. Are you able to see pretty clearly the bottom on a lot of days?
It depends on where you are.
Really?
It's a little bit murkier because we know the Pacific's a little bit deeper. It's colder too. There would be days where it would be real deep and you would have nothing to worry about. And it'd be rocky and reefy. And where I surfed, at least in the Monterey Bay, it'd be very kelpy. In Santa Cruz, it'd be a lot of kelp. All right, these big like trees of kelp down the bottom. You see otters swimming around. It was really, really cool. Tides would be right. You would have nothing to worry about. But sometimes I caught some waves where it was super, super low tide and it ended up with being shallow. You'd be cruising over the rocks and, you might be 2 feet deep.
Yeah.
But that's pretty shallow, maybe a foot deep in some spots.
Totally.
And you could see the kelp and you'd be surfing through the kelp. Your leash would catch it. It'd slow you down. So the shallower the water, you could see it a little bit. And you would see the kelp and kind of try and dodge it and stuff. But the deeper the water, it would just be thicker. You couldn't really see it all that much.
Of course.
The beach breaks, though, would typically be a little bit cleaner to see. And since I grew up on the East Coast, just like yourself, my first inclination to surfing or being at the beach was a sandy beach.
Yeah.
So that was in my mind, that's how you access the waves, down through a sandy beach, all that kind of jazz. So when I first started up surfing, I went to the beach break on the Monterey Peninsula, which is called the Silmar State Beach. Look it up. It's like right on the point, and it's just this sandy beach break, catches all the stuff coming in. And I thought, oh, beach, surfing, great. Paddled out. It was the most difficult thing I've ever done because the power of the swell, the waves, and I was just taking wave after wave after wave on top of me. It wasn't until I discovered some of the point breaks that I realized, oh, wait a minute, surfing is a little bit more learnable now. Because if I paddle out over there,
Here's a great example.
Exactly.
We'll pull
If
up the Snapper
yep.
Rocks picture again.
if I paddle out over there, I'm not taking waves on the head. Guess what? I'm going around
Yeah.
the waves.
So-
And you paddle around them, not under. You're not duck diving.
Yeah.
You're going around. And so it's a longer paddle out, but it's easier to get out.
Yeah.
And then when the waves come in, you catch them, you have a certain direction to go, and you have a blank canvas to go on. You have to worry about, wait, is this wave going this way? Is this wave going this way? Is it a left? Is it right? Or is it this or that? You just go, okay, catch this wave. I'm going to take it this way and follow the point,
Yeah.
follow the break all the way down. So it made it a little bit easier to grasp and learn.
Exactly.
And you know, that paddle out was huge.
And that all comes down to, again, the predictability
Yeah.
of a point break versus a beach break. With your point breaks, it's a little bit easier to kind of see the overall flow
And the overall
of
picture,
The overall
yeah.
picture of the break. I want to turn everybody's attention back to the Snapper Rocks image, because I think it's a perfect representation as to where maybe it's hard to paddle out versus where it's easy.
Yep.
Obviously, when you're first going out into the water, you're going to experience some trouble with the whitewash. You want to break through the whitewater. But once you're riding waves, you can kind of use the area. See the far right of the picture?
There's some people out
Those
there.
clear water where the people are. That's kind of your conveyor belt. That's
Yeah.
kind of where you want to be paddling back out. You don't have to interfere with any of the whitewash. You can basically, assuming you make it out into the lineup with your head dry, you could surf a whole session with your head dry.
Because
Yeah.
where you come out of the wave, where you kind of may end your ride, is essentially the starting point to paddle back out.
Exactly.
So then you finish your ride, then you paddle back out
Yep.
around the waves,
Around the
get back
waves.
to the point, and go down.
Whereas on a beach break, you know, very highly like it depends on where the sandbars are. There's going to be a lot of uncertainty. You could be duck diving 10,
Wave
20
after wave
waves,
after wave after
assuming
wave,
the
yeah.
period is short and you just have relentless wave action. You could be paddling for minutes on end,
Now-
just wearing yourself out.
Now, similar to beach breaks and point breaks, kind of have the same thing here. The longer the period swell, the bigger the wave, the harder their paddle out's going to be, regardless.
Oh, of course.
Especially on a point break. There's been times I've gone out and I've had to go through a couple waves, or I'd catch one of a set coming in.
Yeah.
And it may be the second wave of a 4 or 5 wave set. And I'd ride it in, and then I'd pop out, and I'd be like, I'm on the inside.
Yeah.
Because the size of the swell is big.
It's big.
Whereas
A lot of
on some
a lot
of
of
the
water
days,
moving.
yeah, and on some of those days, the swell will be a little bit smaller. You could just easily go up and around it.
Exactly. Yeah. So when you think point breaks, you also have to think direction the swell is coming from. If it's hitting that point head on,
Yeah.
it's going down the point. All that water is moving down the point. So you're kind of, it's a big workout.
Yeah.
A lot of times on point breaks, that's the one thing. While the wave may be perfect, the workout may be, it might be a shoulder burn.
Yeah.
Because you're just paddling nonstop against that current that's trying to suck you down the point.
And also, it's a longer ride too.
Also a
so
longer
you're
ride.
riding longer, covering more
trade-off.
distance. So then you have more distance to kind of paddle back
It's a
out.
big trade-off.
Yeah.
All right, so we're going to take a quick break, and then we're going to come back and talk about some of the most famous waves in the world, point break or beach break. And we're going to wrap this up, talking a little bit more about the science behind each break. So don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. Alrighty, welcome back, everybody. We're going to wrap this up, talking kind of about some of the most famous waves in the world, point break, beach break, and a little bit more about the science between the two. So
Nazare.
What'd you say?
Isn't it Nazare? What's the big one in Portugal?
The big
Nazare.
one, Nazare.
Sorry.
Believe it or not, that's a beach break. Did you know that? It's a sandbar. There's a cliff there.
I
which
thought it
helps-
was.
No.
Oh, it funnel. Okay, I got
It catches the swell,
right.
but it
Sorry.
catches, it funnels
Sorry.
it. Nazare that's a funky one. I thought it was a point break too, because the first time I found about
My
it,
bad.
that's okay. Because the first time I saw a picture of it, I was like, this thing is a massive point.
Because the cliff goes out,
But
it's a canyon that
it's-
pushes
yes.
the water in.
It
Okay,
pushes the water into
What
the beach.
about Mavericks? That would be a point
Mavericks,
break.
technically, I think would be a point break. It wouldn't classify as a beach break because there's a reef that sticks out. Underwater reef.
And that's the
now,
point.
Point breaks don't need to be waves that last for a whole minute. There are point breaks that are shorter.
Yeah.
Mavericks being a short but massive wave.
What else you got? Steamer Lane. We talked
Steamer
about.
Lane, Pavones.
Pavones.
It's a spot in Costa Rica. It's one of the longest lefts in the world. Yeah.
You should go there.
I
Wait,
want to because I'm a goofy footer, so I like going left.
I got my directions wrong on that.
Left
one
and
thing.
right?
Yeah, left and right.
Oh.
I like rights because I'm regular. You like lefts.
Yes, I
Got
do
it,
love
'cause you
left.
ride goofy.
Facing the wave
Yep.
definitely makes it easier. How
Pleasure Point,
about
Santa Cruz.
Pleasure Point. We also have in in a way, we have Virginia Beach on the right day, on the right swell.
The jetty.
Off the jetty turns into a point break.
Why not?
I'm just going to, that's a heavy claim, but I'm just going to do it.
Hey, you know that 100%. 100%.
Now
Point Judith, Rhode Island.
Point
we talked
Judith,
about.
Rhode Island's
That's
a good one. That one's more sectiony. That's one where there's multiple sections to it. It's not this continuous point. There's a point here.
And if
you go down, you can reach another point, might not be able to surf around that point, but there's multiple breaks that go down the line.
That come in. Malibu. That's a big one. Yeah. We're talking about Southern California. So Malibu,
Really crowded
Ventura Park is also right there as well.
Yeah.
And if you looked at the coastline, it's like a slanted coastline. And then that just makes sense with the way the waves come
And
in.
long period swell. Those places love long periods so
Yeah.
that those long stretched out walls make it through the entire point from top to bottom. East Coast, let's think about some good beach breaks. We can think of, let's say,
Anywhere on the Outer
Banks.
Yep.
The
sandbar setup.
Jeanette's Pier area, getting down through Rodanthe towards Hatteras.
By the piers where sandbars kind of pile up.
Kind of pile up, and you can get those pretty consistent beach breaks.
Yep.
The Jacksonville Beach Pier, which you've had plenty of experience with.
Yeah, there's the poles down, Mayport Poles down in Jacksonville. In New Jersey, a lot of the jetties. I know Manasquan Inlet's your favorite,
Bayhead,
right?
New Jers's great.
Bayhead.
Let's also
Jones
think,
Beach, Long Island.
Oh yeah,
How about that one?
That's a good pull. I forgot about that.
Yeah,
break.
I mean, you were the one who told me about that because it has that little canyon
Little
that gets up the
yep.
Hudson Canyon.
Yeah.
That funnels it in. I just
in.
know that some of the big swells that come up from a hurricane because they're going south to north.
Yeah.
Long Island, Jones Beach faces south, so it catches the southerly swell incredibly well.
Here's another world-class beach break. We have Hossegor. I think it's called Hossegor. I can't pronounce it. It's in France. It's one of the biggest. It's one of the biggest and most perfect beach breaks. It's super heavy. You have to look up, go do a deep dive on, Hossegor, France, or Peniche in Portugal. There's a place called Super Tubos. That's one of the best waves in the world too. Some of the world tour stops there pretty much every year.
I believe it.
Everything. It's a really punchy wave, barrels, airs, turns, everything can go down, but that's another place where you don't want super long period. You want kind of a shorter period so that it's not too stretched out.
So you have the sections.
You have sections. You have a shoulder. You don't have kind of a
so many variabilities,
closeout.
which is great. Let us know if we missed any here.
Yeah.
Chime in. Let us know if there's any ones, or if you know a secret spot that Brian can go scope out here on the Virginia Beach.
Let me know, and I'm there.
Sandbridge, Croatan area,
and I'm there.
Outer Banks, whatever. Yeah.
One of the eventually, once we get more swell here in Virginia Beach, we'll be going out to surf spots to check them out and get some footage surfing them. So
Can't wait.
That's to come.
Can't wait.
Eventually when the storms kind of ramp up here and we start getting some swell. But
Good
point
stuff,
breaks,
man.
beach breaks.
Love them
Do a
both.
deep dive.
Just gotta love them both.
Go on Google Maps like me and Steve do every single day,
Yep,
and
just look for weird irregularities in the coastline.
You can find your point break. So, Steve, thanks for coming on once again. Thank you, everybody, for joining Hang 10 this week. We'll be back next week, same time, same place.